Hello, so welcome to this video for COMP3218, Game Design and Development at the University of Southampton. My name's Dave Millard, I'm one of the lecturers on the course, and I'm here with...
Adrian Chapman, also a lecturer on the course.
And I'm Tom Blount, I'm also a lecturer on the course.
Brilliant. So in this video we're going to be having a look at a number of different games submitted by students on the course. Tom, do you want to say a little bit about what we asked them to do?
Yeah, so for this first piece of coursework, we asked our students to create a small game prototype that had a strong core dynamic and a way of tutorializing that to the player.
Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to find out how they've done, and our first game is coming up, Zombie Clash.
Okay.
So, what have we got here?
So we can play or quit. I guess we play.
Let's play. I quite like the little animated zombie on the start screen. That's quite nice.
Yeah, like the rest of the background's a bit bland, but oh, here we go. Like this is nice, all right. So we've got some tutorial. We've got a lot of text on the screen right at the start, and a lot of UI that I don't know what it does yet. But I mean, we can piece it together. So we've got controls to move,
and you've got mouse to look around.
Use the mouse to look around.
I wonder why they've gone for both. Why they put a thing right up on the screen using the UI and also put signposts in. That's interesting.
Ah, that's interesting. So I was using WSD to move because that's what the first set of instructions said. And then it didn't progress until I also used the arrow keys to move.
Ah, okay.
So now if I press shift to run, yeah, there we go. So
it's getting dark. I need to go home.
It's getting dark. I need to go home.
Cool, so we get a little bit of voice acted stuff.
Yeah, that's nice.
So over the so making sure that we know how to move and jump. Can I? Yeah, can't get around it if I haven't proved that I can jump. So that's good.
Excellent. So you have to use what you've learned.
Sprint over here. This thing's glowing, so let's go and investigate it.
Yeah. So using a bit of light to attract your attention.
Oh, and we've got a check mark over on the objectives that we've picked up a gun.
Aha. Follow the path.
Follow the path.
So I can sprint, or I can not sprint. There doesn't seem to be any reason not to sprint all the time.
No.
Walk over to pick up.
It's not like it's.
Okay.
How did we collect the gun the first time? And it's not the same as the ammo, is it?
We had to press E for that.
Right.
So I wonder why you have to press E for the gun and nothing for the ammo.
Yes. What's the target do?
It's very loud.
Whoa! There's something coming at you.
Zombie.
Says I need to be quiet, and I've immediately shot
that
a zombie in the face.
That zombie died like you really hurt his feelings.
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting because it sets you up to shoot a thing. Once you shot the thing, it gives you an enemy immediately. So that's kind of nice because you're already sort of pointing this way and shooting.
Yeah.
But then it kind of says, yeah, don't shoot, it's too noisy. Which is a bit... Whoops.
So one other thing I do like, though, is also that... oh, there's your silencer.
Never mind, now I've got
that it warned you. I mean, you picked up a lot of ammo there, and it warned you, all right, this is how many you've shot and you're out of ammo, so we have to go keep...
They take a lot of bullets, those things.
They do take a lot of bullets.
There's a couple of...
I can hear it. There's one behind.
Is that a warning? Man attacked by zombies?
How did you go from no ammo? Yeah.
Brains.
There's more. So I don't know if you can hear it on the other end of the call. In fact, I'm gonna pause that and just turn it down a little bit because it's quite loud for me. But there is a lot of nice sound effects and stuff. Although that zombie growl is getting a bit repetitive now. So they sort of scream when they first appear, but then they don't stop until they're dead.
It's a shame there's not some kind of reaction when you hit them as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily expect a full body animation, but
I mean, they fall over.
just making a noise when you hit them.
Yeah.
So you could distinguish that. That'd be useful. So more. Oh, crikey! That was a bit sneaky.
I actually am really enjoying the that attention to kind of the coloring and the cohesion of the elements, because it is kind of exciting when they stumble out of the dark like that.
Do we know what the green boxes are up in the top right hand corner?
I assume that's my health. we can test this.
And we still need to find a safe.
Yep.
Yep,
Yeah.
there was one of your green.
So the screen flashes, I yell "ow," and it disappears.
Yeah. Yes, they didn't tell us about that, but.
And how do we find a safe place? I haven't seen any obvious signposts or this path is pretty long to a safe place if that's what we're really going for.
I'm just glad that we found the valley of randomly scattered ammunition. Because otherwise this zombie apocalypse would be terrifying.
I'm assuming we just got to keep following the path.
It's a bit, yeah. They've kind of. Is it a bit too open, maybe?
Yeah, perhaps. So I mean, it's also kind of just a straight line. Ooh, that's a big zombie. This is not a safe place at all.
Yeah. So you've got your ammo down in the right-hand corner. You're about to run out.
I am.
And you've got another one.
Okie doke.
No ammo.
Problems now.
Yeah. Okay.
Just gonna book it into the trees. Oh, no, there's more of them.
There's another zombie.
Run! Now we need to use run.
If I can just run past them.
Okay.
So while I'm doing that, should we?
Yeah, let's
take
have a
at
look.
the
So
mark scheme?
the coursework's are all marked against a number of different criteria, so it's worth going through each one. So the first criteria is presentation, where basically we're looking at information design, the graphics, and the audio. So you've already said the audio's pretty nice.
Yeah, there's even sort of like a little bit of background music and things like, ooh, a house.
Maybe this is our safe space.
I'm guessing it is, if you can get in.
Does
Does it have a door?
Oh, it does have a door. There we go. Hey, we made it home safely.
There we go. So yeah, so in this case, I think the audio is pretty good. So good would be appropriate use of audio. Excellent would be good use of audio. Graphics, I mean, they're simple, but they're consistent and they kind of work.
And I think actually for the theme of the story that's being told here, they're exactly right. I think they did a very nice job with the graphics.
Yeah, the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very dark, but you've got like this little trail of lights into the distance and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's quite effective, isn't it? And the use of lighting to highlight things, and also the use of the trees and the shrubs around the edge for the zombies to emerge out of.
Yeah.
I think they've done a pretty good job, really. So again, good would be graphics are consistent, and excellent would be consistent and appealing graphics.
I think they're up in the excellent on the graphics.
Yeah, I think they're probably around there for graphics and audio, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely the audio that tips them over the edge, because they've got sort of eerie background music. They've got sound effects to highlight when a zombie's appeared, when it's chasing you, when you've taken damage, obviously the gunfire and stuff like that, but also voice lines, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, actually the voice lines, that's very good. What's happened to your health, by the way? You appear to have lost health in the middle.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I only started with 4 last time, so I'm going to assume that maybe that's a like a layout bug rather than...
Yeah, okay. So the last bit of this was information design. And actually, that's pretty good. I mean, I wasn't entirely clear what the top right thing was until you got hit by a zombie, but other than that, it's clear. It's easy to see. You've got your ammo and your clips down the bottom right. You've got your objectives on the left. I mean, I don't think it's doing anything wildly exciting, but it's effective. So key information is shown clearly. So I think in all, this is probably at the excellent level for presentation.
Yep.
I think they've done a nice job.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So the next 2 things are gameplay and bugs. So maybe we should do bugs next. So good would be the game is playable, is reasonably complex with only minor bugs, and these are uncommon. And I think that's probably where we are, right? Because you've got that slightly odd behaviour in the top right-hand corner. But it's certainly got the complexity.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm just going to turn the sound off now because I've got a little train of zombies behind me.
Yeah. So the next one is the gameplay. So this is, do they have a set of complementary mechanics? Are they usable controls, and is there meaningful play? So what mechanics have we got here?
So we've got
We've obviously jumping over things,
which is
collecting.
used once to get over a log and then never again.
And that's true.
And very similarly, we've got the silence pistol, and the sort of like they give you a pistol and an immediate warning that it's too loud.
Yeah.
Although it being loud sort of seems to have no effect, and then they immediately give you the silence one as well.
Yeah. I wonder if that was something they were intending to do and didn't quite get around to finishing or something.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got you've got a variety of different things. So you do have jumping. There is an obstacle. You've got picking a weapon up. You've got collecting ammunition for it. You've got the zombies attacking. It's not a huge range of things, but you know, it's enough.
Also,
so
I've just put 150 bullets into this fella, and doesn't seem to have much effect.
I wonder if you can actually kill him. Whether you're just supposed to get to the safe place.
Yeah, and sort of that sort of underlines something that I was going to say about the meaningful play in this. In that there's no need to shoot any of the zombies. You could very easily just walk past them.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, it would be nice to give you a cue as well. So perhaps after you emptied 10 rounds into it, it prompted the character to say something like, "I'm never going to kill this. I should just
run.
just run."
Right? Yeah. So okay, so but what about the controls? You're the one playing it. It looks like it's pretty smooth and easy to use.
Smooth, usable. Like movement seems fine. The shooting and reloading seems fine. Again, sort of like in conjunction with the sound effects and things like that, the shooting feels quite impactful.
So good would be a set of complementary mechanics. I think you've got that. Smooth, usable controls, which I think is probably also true.
Yeah,
and leading to meaningful play. So we think satisfactory would be some meaningful play.
And I mean,
I think kind of
interesting. I don't know if it's resetting my health each time. Let me go and test this. So, yeah, I was going to say, even if okay, like assume they didn't give me a gun and the game just becomes running away from the zombies. That's still an element of meaningful play. Oh, that's interesting. So going back to information design, none of these light up until you've picked up the gun.
Ah, okay.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah. So okay, so it feels to me that we're looking at good, or perhaps because of the way that they all interact or fail to interact, it may be satisfactory for gameplay.
It does feel like something between the two of them. The reason for making a meaningful choice, right? That play there, it seems to be a little bit lacking. On the other hand, they do have, a fairly wide set of complementary mechanics. So I would actually advocate for kind of between the two of them.
So between good and satisfactory. Okay.
Yeah.
So while we're on that note, I'll also sort of highlight that it looks like they have tried to sort of put in a sort of deliberate choice there, where there's two routes through the path, and they've got these signposts to sort of warn you that maybe one route's harder than the other. But in actuality, there's not a lot of difference between them. But it looks like they've made an attempt to do that.
So I think we'll get to that in the level design bit in a minute.
Right? Yes.
So the brief, they had to do two things here, right? So one was they had to do level design, which taught you how to play, so with a tutorial, and also that they had to have a kind of a strong core dynamic. So if you think about the level design first, good would be a sensible level design that demonstrates a number of mechanics with good pacing and some clear goals, risks, and rewards. So that's clearly what they're going for with those multiple paths, right? And I think, generally speaking, they've hit that. There's a you go through. You've got the bit at the beginning where you're just learning, and there's no zombies. You pick up the gun, it leads you through. You meet the individual zombies. Then you kind of the pacing picks up at the end with the sort of the boss zombie, if you like, and then you've got to make it to the safe house.
Yeah.
So they've tried to do that. I'm not convinced about the goals, risks, rewards balance. I'm not sure that comes across.
Yeah, like again, it feels like it was maybe something they were trying to do with the silenced and non-silenced guns, but it's definitely not apparent from playing if there's an impact to choosing one over the other.
Yeah. So I think what we've got here is a sensible level design that demonstrates the mechanics pretty decently, with an attempt at pacing and some goals, risk, rewards, or attempt at that. So it feels like that's the satisfactory level, or maybe just a tad above. Maybe a tad above, because the level design is quite nice in the way that it takes you through. So maybe like before, it's sort of halfway between the two, maybe.
I think so too.
What about the tutorial elements? So you've got the thing that pops up at the beginning. You've got the signs to steer you through.
Yep, you've got the highlighted objects that sort of lead you. So, like your trail of breadcrumbs, if you like.
Yeah. So for this, like, good would be a mostly integrated tutorial that communicates goals, risk, rewards through level design, and that introduces information and mechanics in a logical way that fits what has gone before. So I think they've.
So that's the thing. Like, despite stuff we've already mentioned, like the slight lack of goals, risks, and rewards, and the slight inconsistencies in some of the mechanics. Like the first thing it tutorializes you is jump, but then we never need to use it again. Other than that, the sort of overall pacing of the tutorial elements, I think, is quite good.
Work. Yeah, it does. I think that the excellent level would be for better integration, right? And it feels like a little bit like, although you're encountering the tutorial elements within the game, the only bit of integration they've got is the kind of the lighting.
Yeah.
I mean, you might argue that pulls them up a little bit, but I think that that means that they're not otherwise at the excellent level. So they're either at good or slightly above. What do we think?
I think I would agree with that.
So if we put them give them the benefit of the doubt, go for the slightly higher one to reflect the kind of some of the use of lights to steer you through the level.
Yeah, and the changes of lights based on what you've got in your hands, and yeah.
So the other element of this then was the core dynamic. So we were after a clear core dynamic that suits the theme of the game and is well supported by the primary mechanics and audio-visual choices, right? What do you think their core mechanic is here? I've got their game notes, so I can tell you what they think it is. But
so this is the thing. I could see them arguing that it's destruction, but I would personally say it's more like escape and evade.
Yeah, I would go with chase and evade.
Yeah, and I agree completely. And they've done exactly what you said. They think it's destruction.
And that's so. The reason I will very clearly say it's not destruction is because you can't kill the final boss. You can't destroy the ultimate enemy in this thing. You can only run away from it.
Yeah.
So I think there's clearly destructive elements in it, but it's about which one is serving the others, right? So here your goal is not to destroy things, right? That's not what you're about. You're actually trying to escape and evade. Yeah. And the destruction helps you in that goal, right? But is not the major point of the game.
Yep. And indeed, in that objective list, the very final thing in your objective list is find a safe place, which is not destruction. That's. And
in fact, even in their core dynamic section, they say the main objective of the player is to reach his home safely. And then they say this is the key characteristic which makes our game core dynamic destructive rather than survival. But yeah, I think they've got that wrong. So that said, it doesn't matter if they've misidentified it if the design works. But I think the problem is that the design doesn't quite work because you can, because of this kind of mix-up between you don't have to destroy the zombies. Like you said, you could actually succeed without finding the gun at all.
Yep.
The boss at the end, you can't destroy it. So, I mean, if you were judging it as a sort of a escape and evade game, or you might argue that it wasn't too bad. But let's have a look at what the criteria say. So, for example, a satisfactory would be a core dynamic that is a poor match for the theme of the game and is supported by only some of the mechanics and audio-visual choices. So remember, what's really bad here is if the two things are sort of if they conflict or detract, right? Yeah. I'm not sure they do here.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, sort of. Ooh, I don't know where they went.
Right, so I think that it probably is at least satisfactory.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I mean, if
I don't think it's any worse than that.
yeah, if we're judging it on their sort of idea that it is a destruction game, the fact that they give you a gun and then warn you not to shoot it definitely pulls away from that as well. But they do mitigate that by giving you the silenced one.
Yeah. So, lastly, we've got their feedback. So we asked them to tell us what feedback they received and how they responded to it. So what they said was they didn't have a clear understanding of their core dynamic because they couldn't identify the difference between a survival and a destructive. So they presented their game as a survival game. And according to the feedback, this was wrong. Because although the player needs to survive, it's considered a destructive game since the main objective is to reach a safe place without getting killed. I suspect they've misunderstood the feedback. And what they were saying was, if it's a game where you pick up a gun and the whole point is to shoot zombies, then it's a destructive game.
Yes.
But the problem is to follow through on that, you have to sort of par down the escape and evade bits of it.
Yep.
Not the other way around.
Or amp up the destruction bit, so sort of finding different
Yes.
guns scattered through, and each time you find a new one, it's like bigger and better and even more destructive than the last kind of thing.
So they said, we thought of eliminating the safe place objective, introducing health pickups, and increase the game's difficulty using waves of zombies.
Now, if they'd have
These
done that, I would
implementations-
have said that was solidly a survival
Pure
dynamic.
destructive.
So they said these implementations will make the core dynamic survival, right? So they've got that.
Yep.
But they decided to keep the safe place the main objective, which made it destructive.
Okay, I can
Yeah.
see where they're coming from, because rather than having endless waves and the whole survival thing of you will eventually die, but can you survive a little bit longer? By giving you a solid objective, a solid win state, and you've got to destroy as much stuff. Well, you have
You
to
don't.
destroy stuff to get there, but that's the thing, you actually don't.
Yeah, I think they kind of they've got all the kind of trappings of a destructive game, but they kind of haven't made it a destructive game experience. That's the problem. Okay, so there's another part to their feedback as well, where they were suggested that they should implement the tutorial in game rather than just text pop-ups, and to make it as interactive as possible. So they created wooden signs. And they and put them in the game world, and then they were suggested that the player should know about the objectives from the very beginning. And so in response, they introduced voice recordings in the early stage of the game, which gives them a kind of idea of a purpose, and they put the objectives on the screen. So I think that does work, right? I think if it wasn't for that, you'd be really lost.
I think...
So there's a bit of a mixture here, I think. Then so I think they've understood the feedback about the dynamic, but they've failed to execute it, right?
Yeah.
But they have managed to execute the feedback about the tutorial. So good would be feedback was articulated and reasonable changes have been successfully made, and satisfactory would be feedback was articulated and some changes have been made with partial success. So again, it feels maybe satisfactory or
I think we're in the satisfactory land.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. So that's our last one. So I think that's Shall we move on to our next game?
Yeah, let's move on to the next one. And the next game is Call of Duties, which
So
is
nice title screen. Simple but effective.
wow,
So
we've
I guess
got
we go
apparently a high score table as well.
high score table.
So I guess we'll do the tutorial first, so we know what we're doing.
Go for it.
Okay.
Ooh, okay. Current duties.
Failures remaining. Time alive. Higher.
Oh, we've got a little. We've got Clippy.
Oh, what? I hadn't read that. What did it say?
Something.
Let's start off with the basics about.
That about the HUD. All right. I think they introduced themselves and said they're going to help us out.
Okay. It shows how long you've been alive. You need to know as the ship never breaks down. Not that you need. This here shows how many more failed facilities on this ship that can be tolerated. Not that these things ever break. When it reaches 0, I'm reading this quite fast and I'm struggling to get to the end.
Yeah.
The section shows what facilities currently need attending to. It displays a time remaining. Nope.
Oh.
This message displayed can only be seen when you are at a broken object in the facility that needs fixing. Although you'll already be fixing these, you can only.
Do was.
Right. Quick. Press.
Wazdy.
Right, let's take a gander.
Okay.
All right, we're going to take a walk around the ship.
Okay, when you're fixing things, spacebar. Okay, so I've at least been able to skim it and figure out what the buttons are. Currently in navigation, head over to the center console. See, this is a perfect opportunity for that not to progress until I've gone over to the center console. This is a job you can fail at if you do not follow the procedures. Feel free to attempt it until you complete it. But I've not even gotten over to the...
Current job. So what you have to do, go and...
Navigate through the asteroids, so it's...
Ah.
That, and then space, and then... Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I think I remember speaking to the folks that made this during the development, and if it's the game I'm thinking of, it's basically a sort of like a set of mini games about keeping your spaceship in working condition and trying to survive as long as you can.
Okay. You can fail if you do not follow the procedures effectively. Walk to the generators and interact with them with E. How do you know which one of the generators then?
Because I don't know. I imagine it said when the engines are broken, they cause massive. So yeah.
The 2 failures rather than 1. Right.
So I can't interact with that. I can't interact with.
It's not in the other room.
Maybe I have to go to a different room.
What's up to the north
There's
there?
a door over here.
These are generators?
I guess they
E
must
to
be.
interact? Fix
Press
the
the correct
generator.
keys to. So that.
Hang on. What are you doing?
Yeah, what did you just do?
So there are some. Basically a quick time event. So there were some buttons showing up on the right hand side of the screen, and I pressed them.
Oh, were there? I didn't even see those.
Okay,
Yeah, I missed it entirely.
now we're in the toilet
Oh,
room.
it's a bathroom.
Yeah, okay.
So
Walk
now
with
I
the
have
toilets
to
and
do my
interact
duty.
Hit the up and down arrows rapidly to unblock.
There we go.
Okay.
Do you have to do all the toilets?
So these block. So if these break, they block something in
northwest
the. Go to
In
the electrical
black
room.
room at the centre of the ship. Right?
So I think that they're unlocking these doors as the tutorial progresses. So that at least is good. So I'm not wandering around the entire ship lost. But yeah, I'm really struggling to keep up with this text. Is that?
Interact with it with E. Complete your duty.
I just noticed the in the bottom right our little NPC character that's guiding us through. Their little expression changes as they're talking.
Oh, really?
That's a really
right.
nice little touch.
Enter the correct sequence provided to restart the mainframe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 done.
I was not watching that. Incorrect.
Incorrect sequence provided.
So the electricals are
There you
broken.
go. Can you interact with it again?
So right, down, right, left.
Oh, I see.
Right,
I thought they were actually asking you to input
right,
numbers.
left.
Well, that's the countdown.
And then I assume it's left again? Yeah. So that's a bit of a problem as well. If you get the same key twice in a row, there's no obvious gap between them, so you can't tell if it's...
Well, except that the numbers come up, right? So the numbers...
True, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that they colour-coded all the different rooms. That's kind of nice.
Interact with E.
Up,
Okay.
right, down, left. Okay, so we've got to turn the
Oh, I
turn
see.
the little thing. So that's kind of nice.
This was just their excuse to make you like a performing monkey, I think.
Yep. Are you getting flashbacks to like the old decathlon?
Weirdly, it
Right,
puts me in
weapons
mind
bay.
of Among Us, but I think that's just because spaceship and mini games.
E.
Hatch,
Open the hatch up. Reload by hitting right.
left space,
Close
close.
the hatch up, loading. 5 ammo creates it. So. It might make more sense to you when you're doing it, but because we can't see what you're pressing, it's
Yeah, so I'm just pressing the buttons that show up.
it looks very random when you're interacting with these things. When the turn systems are broken, you are unable to shoot something or other. There are some key points I want to say. So really quickly, broken facilities cannot be repaired. Debuffs for broken facilities last for the whole time.
Good luck.
Good luck taking the spaceship. You're going to need it. I think you might.
Good luck, and remember, we're all
Right.
counting on you.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see how this goes.
Okay. Let's play.
And I think we've seen sort of enough of the game Oh, we got a lovely little bit of music in the background as well.
Yeah. So nothing's gone wrong. So let's just wait and see what happens.
I've already forgotten where the gunbay was.
Red.
No, but that wasn't a. How did you know?
Because on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a timer going down.
How did you know that you had to go in there to do the guns? Electricals and gunbay.
So this one's electricals. Oh heck! Left down.
Left down, left down, left down, left.
Okay, got you.
I suspect I'm not going to be very talkative.
Gunbay again.
I'm wondering, how do your wrists feel at this point? There's definitely a lot of, I don't know. Some of this feels like I would wonder if you're, if the game is comfortable to play.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I still don't. Oh yeah, no, I still don't understand what you do in that room, but I'm sure it's tricky. Okay, electricals again. What was that in the middle?
Why is the gunbay complaining still?
I think it's just a new one. It keeps coming up as a new thing.
Yeah.
So if you get the electricals, you've not got much time left. Yeah, you've got 8 seconds to sort out the electricals.
Plenty of time.
Uh-oh.
It's this one.
Down, up, down, left.
That one could just explode. I don't care about that one.
So while Tom is rushing around, should we start thinking about it? So okay, let's think about the. Well, let's do the bugs first. So, have you spotted any bugs?
So I'm not sure if it's just our view on this, but occasionally the instructions that open up on the gray box of the hatch, like how you're supposed to work, overlap with the little gray box in that tutorial that went too fast on the slide. So there's occasionally text overlap that made it difficult to read.
Yeah, you're right, and that's why we missed a few of them, I think.
Yeah. But that's really the only like kind of thing that I would call a bug. That I would talk about.
It's pretty minor.
There's a bug.
Oh, what was that?
2 minutes and 5.39.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I think so bugs would be good is game is playable and is reasonably complex. There are only minor bugs and these are uncommon, and I think it's probably that, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so.
These are very minor issues. Okay, what about presentation? So, information design, graphics, and audio. What do you think?
It's one of those that some things I think they've done really well. So I actually love the layout of their rooms and their presenting. Like the time is actually very easy to see, and then on the other hand, it goes completely the other way where some things are really hard to see. So. The storyline that they had in the beginning that flipped way too fast to understand. Yeah. Some of these little mini games, the arrow that's telling you what to do is hard to read. Like this one, actually, this is a key one.
Yeah.
Entering the sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the arrow, it just doesn't.
I suppose the danger is if you pick something with mini games. Obviously, you've got to get every single mini game has its own information design, and you've got to get it all right. And then you've got to make it look consistent within the whole of the game.
Yeah.
So they've set themselves a really difficult challenge by going through.
I will say that most of the mini games, like the information design on them, is relatively consistent. So we have like a little nicely drawn sort of
the arrows are always the same
explanation, and the arrows are almost always in the same place.
Yeah.
I have to say, now I've got used to it. It kind of it's a bit easier to follow what's going.
It is. Yep.
Okay, and what about the? I mean, the graphics are. I mean, they're simple, but they're straightforward. They're effective.
Yeah. I actually like the fact that they're different. There's a different style between the game and the mini games. I think that separation I actually think helps. Tom, what about the sound? We can't hear it on the other side of the recordings.
So there's a lovely little bit of background music, but there's not a lot else that I can hear. So there's something to make it not deadly silent. Maybe it'd be nice if there was like a sort of like a failure noise when you hit a failure or something, like a big sort of alarm or whatnot.
So for presentation, satisfactory would be key information is shown, consistent graphics, and some audio effects or music. And good would be key information shown clearly, graphics are consistent, and appropriate use of audio, effects, and/or music. So it feels like it's probably satisfactory level, do you think?
I was actually going I was actually thinking that they were actually a little bit higher up into the good category, only because that whole graphics with consistent is they have two different levels that they're working across between the mini games and the game itself, and they did that really well.
Yep. So what do we think? Sort of halfway between the two then?
That's what I was going to shoot for.
So okay, and gameplay. So this is there a set of complementary mechanics, usable controls, and meaningful play?
So no, hang on, there. I can't talk and do this mini game at the same time. There we go. I've self-destructed so that I can talk about it for a second.
So tell us about the controls. Do you feel like you're in control?
Yeah, the controls feel fine. I mean, most of the controls are just movement and then like effectively quick time events.
Yeah.
So this is something I definitely said to them during development, which is that like the fun of this game doesn't come from the mini games themselves. The mini games are busy work. The actual game is, oh god, which mini game do I do next? And I definitely get that impression as I'm playing it, so I think they definitely nailed that.
Yeah,
they do. And I think one of the things, and I think we missed it in the tutorial just because of some of the problems up in the text, but they obviously, some of them, they were trying to tell us that some of these games were more important, like they hit a 2-hit as opposed to a 1-hit. Yeah. And so it might change your ordering even if the time was different. And I kind of caught that, but I don't see it now, or I don't remember the information. And so they were clearly thinking about that.
And they sorry, I was just going to say they all have different effects. So like the only one I remember off the top of my head is like if the toilets break permanently, then it clogs up this section, so you have to go a longer route around. And if the O2 breaks, you've got to wear a hard suit, so you're slowed down. So the fact that each of these have different consequences, I quite like. I
do too.
Yeah, I think so. I think the problem is in how that's presented to us, right, rather than the next existing in the first place. So it's remembering how, there's no prompt to help you prioritize the duties, as it were, right? And it's not entirely clear what the consequences will be.
I mean, there's a prompt in such that like it tells you, like you've got the timer for each one that's ticking down, and you have to decide like, oh, do I go for this one or do I just leave it, kind of thing. I think it's the electricals actually that if you fail at that, it removes that from the UI, which again is another thing to prioritize. Yeah,
that's quite nice. That kind of that sort of meta play. So, I in terms of gameplay, then. So good would be a set of complementary mechanics, smooth usable controls, and meaningful play. Do you think they've got there?
I think they're good.
Yeah, because that's the mechanics aren't like weirdly the mechanics are not within my controls, because my controls are just move to a place and press some arrows. The mechanics are all in managing what will happen if bits break, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I kind of think that the game itself and their idea is really nice, and there's something about the execution they've not quite got there, and I think like I said, it's understanding what the consequences are, and therefore informing you when you're making your decisions about prioritizing which tasks to do.
I will say it sort of ramps up very fast, so a lot of it devolves into just sheer panic of like, can I make it to the room before something goes wrong, rather than me sitting and thinking, oh, which room should I go to next? Yeah. But equally, small prototype, they want us to be able to see all of the stuff that happens within about 5 minutes of gameplay. So
yeah. I mean, I think we can probably, in terms of gameplay, I think we can probably go for good.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot going on. And I think that the problems with it aren't the gameplay. I think the problems with it are
information design.
Like that's the thing, because the tutorials skipped so fast over all of those things. I don't know what the problems of each of those things are, and that's what makes it interesting. So there I failed navigation, which meant the ship was going through an asteroid field, which meant every now and then it would just shove my character to one side, which was actually really interesting to deal with.
Yes. But they could have done with prompts. You need to be told that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. So okay, we'll go with good, and we're saying that it's the information design that's the issue. Well, let's get on to some of that then. So this is the level design, the tutorial design. So what do we think about the level design? So we're looking for a sensible design that demonstrates a number of mechanics, good pacing, and clear goals, risks, and rewards.
So in terms of the actual physical level space, it's quite good, particularly given that certain things will block off different areas, which change that shape.
Yeah, that's quite nice, isn't it? And it does demonstrate the mechanics. And I think the goals, risks, and rewards are kind of there, but again, they don't communicate them well enough, I think.
Yes.
They definitely could be done
pacing?
better. I will say the goals, risks, and reward thing. Sorry, just going back to that for a second. I think they're actually really, really good because there's a lot of choices of should I go to this or not? Kind of thing. Like that works really well for it. Weirdly, it's sort of the pacing maybe that throws that a little out of whack because, like I say, it ramps up so quickly, then it stops. It stops me sort of making that interesting choice, and just I run towards whichever room I'm closest to.
So this again feels like it's somewhere between satisfactory and good.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say because we've got the level design that works and demonstrates the mechanics, and it does have clear goals, risks, and rewards, but the pacing is off a little bit, so it kind of drags it down, perhaps to sort of halfway between the two.
So here's the thing: I don't think the pacing is necessarily bad. I just think it's a bit compressed. It still definitely ramps up over time, and it sort of does have that, like, sort of, because I think that sort of panicky feeling that is something they're deliberately trying to evoke.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just too much too soon.
I think one of the challenges with pacing is that it automatically gets more challenging as the game progresses, right? So I think that's why I'm wondering whether they're introducing more and more things as you play, or are they just allowing the deterioration of the ship to give them their pacing? I don't know. But anyway, all right. So let's move on. So what about the tutorial elements? So we're looking for an integrated tutorial that communicates goals, risks, and rewards through level design, and that introduces information and mechanics in a logical way. They've clearly attempted to do this, but it was difficult to follow. So there's a lot of information going on, and I think that's one of the reasons we've struggled a bit with the gameplay, right?
So that's the thing. I think this is the thing that they do sort of fall down on. Even if they'd just made that sort of tutorial prompt, space to continue, that would have massively improved it, but it still would be not as well integrated as it could have been.
And the part that I think so there's always been that kind of text overlap, but I think where they really did fall down is that teaching us the consequences. So the toilets overflowed, so now I have to go the long way around, and it's going to be harder. So it's the things, some of those things came out in the text, but because we didn't have to experience them, it didn't become a part of our game.
It's a classic example, isn't it? They should, they're showing, or they're in fact they're telling, right? And what we should be doing is playing.
Yeah.
So rather than tell us that that's a consequence, we should just go through the game and do the tasks as they come up, and then if we fail to do it, they should tell us what the consequence is, right?
And indeed,
and explain it to us.
Absolutely, and in fact, the easy way to do that is to make a consequence happen. So, for example, the toilet's flooding in a non-lethal way. So halfway through the task, oh no, it flooded, now what? And then you have to figure that before there's another worse consequence or before they stack up. Yeah.
So I think that's their problem, is they've just tried to tell us everything up front. It's information overload.
Yeah.
So okay, I mean it is partly integrated, right? They do talk you through it.
So they do. I think they pause it when they say sort of go to this room and do this task to continue.
Yes. So satisfactory would be a partly integrated tutorial that communicates some of the goals, risks, and rewards through level design, and that introduces most information and mechanics in a logical way. So I think, I think the problem is that it doesn't necessarily communicate the risks through level design, but it sort of does the other bits.
Yeah. I would actually say it's an integrated tutorial. It just doesn't do the risks and it does some of the goals, risks, and rewards.
Okay, so that probably that sort of says that there's elements dragging it up towards good, but that element probably means it's satisfactory.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the other element, the other part of the course was core design, core dynamics. As you might expect, they said that they went for survival. By survive as long as you can by completing duties in your spaceship. So I think they've pulled this off, haven't they? They're kind of.
I do too.
Everything is kind of pulling in that direction. There's nothing in here which is clashing with that or taking you in a different direction.
Yep, I agree.
100% agree. Yeah, I think it works really well.
So excellent would be a clear core dynamic that suits the theme of the game and is well supported by an integrated set of mechanics and appropriate audio-visual choices.
I think we're there.
Yeah, I think maybe lacking on the audio, but I think the set of mechanics probably lifts it because, again, each failure state has a different consequence for the rest of your survival kind of thing. It interplays really nicely.
Yep.
Okay, so that's pretty good. So we're left with the feedback. What they said was, they've gone for some informal versus formal feedback. So they had to play around with the difficulty curve to make sure that it didn't go on forever. So they planned to have different ships with different layouts and different rooms, but they never implemented it due to time concerns. So yeah, that's fine. I don't think we would have expected multiple ships.
No.
This is what they've got is more than adequate, isn't it? And they said to tutorialize things dynamically, showing each new duty as it's added. But they decided to show all the tutorials at the beginning to make sure that you know how they all work. So that actually was one of our criticisms, right? That they should have integrated it.
And that's if they'd have just had you're in your ship and the only thing that breaks to start with is say the navigation thing. So you sort of do that twice even, and then it's the engine's now overheating, and then it sort of
leads you along.
So they also said that that to make sure there weren't too many dependencies, otherwise it may lead to spatial reasoning tasks. So they reduced the amount of debuffs that targeted the layout of the ship and focused on debuffing the player. So they did that. Focus on the tutorial, reinforcing it's a survival scenario. So they made sure that it emphasizes the importance of completing duties and make it feel like you're an impending doom. So they said coloured lights and killer soundtrack.
I mean, I've definitely got the feeling of impending doom.
Yeah, kind of. So I mean, they've definitely responded to some of those things. And I think some of the things that we haven't complained about sound like things that we might have complained about had they not fixed them.
Yeah.
That kind of seemed to work. Yeah.
So where would say good be on this?
I think
so good is feedback was articulated, reasonable changes have been successfully made, and satisfactory would be feedback was articulated and some changes have been made with partial success. So I mean, it feels probably on the good side, right?
Yeah, I think so.
They've done a reasonable job of changing things.
Yep.
Okay, shall we move on to the next game?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Let's move on. And our next game is Stay Safe, with the subtitle Avoid COVID, Collect Toilet Paper. I mean, topical.
Yeah, it's very topical. Okay.
Right, let's jump into the tutorial.
Simple menu, but effective. Let's go for it.
Not what I was expecting, but okay.
No.
So there's but partly right. That's because of just the title of the game kind of makes it feel like it's going to be a different sort of game.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
So there's very small right into the bottom. You're placed on the board, move around with WASD or arrow keys, make a few moves.
So
go on then.
This is exactly what we were saying previously. Is tutorial's not moving until I've shown that I can do this thing.
Yeah.
So there we go. All right. Little sound effect as we move. Cool.
Ooh, there's something there.
You can't
move into the same place as obstacles. Make a few moves to continue.
Why is the obstacle all the way over there until we bump into
It's a shame it's not near you, isn't it?
Oh, but wait, there's toilet paper. The aim is to collect.
The aim is to collect as many toilet rolls as possible. Collect a toilet roll.
Again, I'm just going to tab out slightly just to reduce the volume a little bit, because that sound effect I can tell is going to get on my nerves a little bit.
I'm kind of hoping there's a... Ooh.
Enemies move around the board. Some follow you. They make moves after you do. They can move multiple spaces. So already I can see a core dynamic emerging here.
Yeah. They can move multiple spaces at once. If the enemy lands on the same space as you do, you lose. Lose to an enemy. Okay.
That's
Slightly unusual way of doing it, but...
So why is one of them moving away from me?
Yeah, I'm not sure they necessarily always move towards you.
So that's kind of interesting.
You completed the tutorial. Alright, let's play the game.
Background music again.
Go get that toilet paper. What's the toilet paper do for us? Did our score go up or something with it?
It didn't in the tutorial, but...
Score in the top left-hand corner, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah, there we
go.
go.
We got one for toilet. Okay, our score goes up with every toilet paper roll picked up. The enemies seem kind of stupid. They're really...
Maybe they get salty as my score goes up. Who knows?
I think they're presumably moving randomly. It's kind of like a curious stop-start playstyle, isn't it? Because you can sort of play it as if it was not turn-based, but at the same time, at any point you can freeze and it becomes turn-based. That's kind of interesting.
So this is the thing, because the enemies move in sort of irregular, unpredictable patterns, it almost takes away part of the... Ooh, heck, never mind. That's interesting.
Oh, I wonder if they are moving in irregular.
I wonder if they move randomly until they get close to you.
Is there any escape out of the situation now, though? Is this effectively...
No, it's cornered you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting.
So yeah, so that would be more effective if there was some kind of warning about that, or
no.
so
This
for
one's
example,
moving away from me. I'm actually chasing this one.
So for example, and that one didn't chase you then as well. Which is
No.
odd. So for example, if the squares around the enemy were shaded red to indicate that that's the enemy's chase zone.
Yeah.
But again, if you have that, if you have enemies chasing you, you should probably have a mechanic in the game which enables you to get rid of an enemy. So like going through a one-way gate or something. So does this just carry on forever on the same level? Is this level random as well? I'm trying to remember what it was like last time.
They have different...
I don't think it is.
I don't remember the two on the right-hand side being all the way over there.
See, this one's definitely chasing me now. I wonder if it's tied to your score. I think they might move randomly until you get a certain score, and then one of them...
Yeah.
Which, that's kind of interesting, because that shows that they've thought about the pacing of their game, so it doesn't... I mean, we asked them to submit a small report, sort of talking about why they made the choices they did.
Yeah.
So maybe they've mentioned it there. So yeah, it looks
Okay.
like
Well,
the board is the same.
Let's go through the criteria and see where we get to. So bugs, first of all. It doesn't look like there are any. Looks like it works.
Can't say I've seen it.
Works
Yet.
okay. So this now comes down to complexity. Are we happy that? So excellent would be game is playable, is reasonably complex with no obvious bugs. So are we happy that it's reasonably complex? It's on the edges for me, I think.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, it seems a little bit simplistic to me.
it's like yeah. I think part of it kind of hinges on how these things.
What the behaviour is.
Yeah, and the thing is, it looks like it just gets to a certain threshold, and then they just start chasing you. So there's not necessarily a huge amount of strategy that you
Yeah.
can employ against them. Maybe
No.
maybe you can sort of lead them to get stuck behind these obstacles and things like that.
I mean, the one down from that is still good, right? The game is
Yeah.
playably complex, and in this case, it's not that there's minor bugs; it's the playability that takes it down. So I mean, I think I'd be happy with saying that the bugs are good. It works fine. There's no bugs, but the complexity is fairly simple. What about presentation?
I think it's quite nice actually.
I quite like the presentation actually. I think it's a shame that the menu screen isn't more consistent with it.
Yeah.
And the obstacles, I don't know what they are,
Little shops, I think.
why they're there. I kind of feel like it's quite an abstract game, and then the obstacle, I don't know, what are they?
I think they're little shops.
I thought they were store shops,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but they look like bookshelves.
yeah, and they're not the right scale for like the toilet paper. Yeah, so there's maybe a couple of inconsistencies, but in general it's clear. You can see what's going on. It's quite effective, striking looking. What's the audio like?
We've got a lovely little sort of relaxing sort of background music, which seems fitting for this sort of abstract, I want to say,
Yeah.
puzzle game.
Yeah. So and what about information design?
Well, we've got our score. There's no. So it kind of comes back to like, what is this, right? So we have a high score of 19, which is in some way related to how long we've stayed away from our COVID-carrying enemies. But is there a timer? Is it purely just get the toilet paper? I feel like there's something missing in here.
I suspect every 10 toilet rolls we collect, another of them basically goes into seek and destroy mode and starts chasing us.
So I think that the bit of information design that's missing, and the thing that's been difficult for us, is that they don't indicate that, right? So we said, that you can have an area around the enemy. If they activate, if you get too near them, then show the area of activation, right? If they change mode and start chasing you at some point, change the color of the enemy to indicate that it's chasing you, right? I mean, it's the classic kind of, the Pac-Man did this, right? It kind of changes the state of things, so you know what's going on. So that to me is the problem, that there's enemy state that we can't see and is not indicated to us.
I mean, you can relatively quickly divine it by just, is it moving towards you or away from you? But yeah, it would be nice if they emphasise that in some way.
So all right, so for me then, good is key information is shown clearly, graphics are consistent, appropriate use of audio, and satisfactory would be key information is shown, consistent graphics, some audio. Is it more satisfactory, do you think?
I think we're edging closer to satisfactory at this one.
I would say maybe a notch above satisfactory, because the overall art and aesthetic, I guess, is sort of nice and consistent. It's abstract, but
yeah. Okay. What about gameplay? So the set of complementary mechanics and smooth controls in meaningful play.
So controls are fine. There's perhaps a lack of mechanics, which is something that we touched on in the bugs part, but they're already. But the mechanics that are there work well together. Again, it's not obvious when certain ones of them have activated. But so when I did have one chasing me, for the most part it was trivial to avoid because it was sort of just walk past. Occasionally you'll get into situations where you can't, for example, cross onto the other half of the board because they'll get you. So it becomes a case of, okay, how do I lead them to one of these obstacles, lead them around it so I can get away? So that sort of becomes interesting, and I'm willing to bet it gets slightly more interesting when there's more ones chasing you. Although I have just noticed, where's the next thing that I should be getting?
Collecting, yeah.
I assume it's behind one of these.
Behind the ones at the back.
Yeah.
It's a bit unfortunate.
Yep, there it is.
Yep.
Okay, so in terms of this then, so So a pass is fewer inconsistent mechanics, challenging controls, and limited meaningful play. So I don't think it's got challenging controls,
No.
but it might be that the mechanics and the meaningful play, the lack of meaningful play, is a problem. Satisfactory would be a set of mechanics and usable controls that leads to some meaningful play.
Yeah.
Probably just about gets there, I think.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of can. Yeah, okay, for all the reasons we said. All right, okay, level design and tutorial design. So,
hang on.
yeah, level design,
No.
sensible level design that demonstrates a number of mechanics with good pacing and clear goals, risks, and rewards.
Tom found a big bug.
Oh, I didn't spot that. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, there's your bug. That's a shame.
And sadly, that one's kind of a big one.
Yeah, that's a game-breaking bug.
That's a game-breaking bug. All right, so we might have to. So infrequent serious bugs would be satisfactory. So
Yep.
I think that probably, puts it there.
okay, so we'll okay, a shame, but there you go.
Yeah, I think it's all the
right.
more problematic because, like, the rest of the game is so simple. It feels like it would be quite easy to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. So okay, so level design. Does this level demonstrate a number of mechanics? Is there good pacing? And are there clear goals, risks, and rewards? This is much more problematic to me.
It is. Because really, it feels like a no is the answer to all of those.
I will
Let's
counter
drop
that.
down a bit. So satisfactory would be a sensible level design that demonstrates some of the mechanics with an attempt at pacing and some goals, risks, and rewards.
So
It's not clear to me what the pacing is.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I will counter that with it demonstrates all of the mechanics. There's just not a lot of mechanics to demonstrate, which we've already
Yes.
talked about. There is
Yes.
pacing because the behaviour of the enemies changes as your score progresses throughout the
Well,
game.
we think it does.
I'm pretty confident it does because they move randomly until I get to about 10, and then one of them will lock onto me.
Chase you.
Yeah,
But what are the goals, risks, and rewards?
that's the problem. That it's not a case of there's like
There aren't any, right?
No. I mean, your goal is to up your score, but why? And why up your score? Because there's always only one toilet paper, so it's not even that you have a choice. I mean, you have a choice. Well, do I go the long way around the benches or the shops or not?
You know,
But-
what they should probably have done is had like a double pack of toilet paper.
Yep.
that disappears in a certain
which-
number of
which-
moves or something.
That appears in more difficult places,
Yep.
nearer to the enemies or something. That would have done the job. So I think this is quite. So I agree that you're right that it's a sensible level design that demonstrates some of the mechanics. Demonstrates the mechanics, but they're very simple. Pass would be poorly balanced or paced, and I would say that it maybe isn't quite that bad, but it's getting that way because you don't know what's going on. We think there's just a step change at some point.
Yeah. It's a lack of clarity on those
And
goals.
there's certainly a lack of that. So maybe between a pass and satisfactory,
Yeah. Okay.
we were being kind of generous. And tutorial design. So
I quite like the tutorial design.
Yeah.
It,
was
yeah,
cute.
it got you through it, didn't it? So good would be a mostly integrated tutorial that communicates goals, risks, rewards through level design and introduces information and mechanics in a logical way. So the only thing I would say is that they didn't really show us through level design. They just told us. So an example would be the obstacle appears, but it's not an obstacle to us. It's on the other side of the thing. It would be better if they suddenly put a wall next to us, or there was something that we had to navigate out of to demonstrate to us that we couldn't use it. And they do things like they say, go and be caught by an enemy, whereas what they should do is they should generate the enemy in such a way that it will catch you, right? By putting you in a dead end, for example.
And some of these things can happen or become even more meaningful if you reduce that board size. So then suddenly you put an obstacle there that you can't get past, and then an enemy is right behind you, and that shows you, you have to make a choice between the toilet paper, the wall, the enemy. You could do some of these things in an integrated way.
So I think if you were and again, it's the lack of mechanics means that it becomes difficult to effectively demonstrate because there's not much to demonstrate. So, you know, you can imagine some things like, for example, the enemies have a detection radius, but it doesn't go through obstacles. The further you progress in the game, some of the squares fall away, right? So you can't cross them; they effectively become obstacles, right? You know, there are things they could have done, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. So we're in terms of the tutorial. So it's I would say Satisfactory is a partly integrated tutorial that communicates some things through level design and that introduces most information in a logical way. It probably feels there really. It's I would say that it is partly integrated. They try to show you on the board, but they're still telling you, not showing you.
Yes.
Which means it's a sort of satisfactory.
Yes.
Right, core dynamic. What do we think?
I'm curious to see what they said about this.
Yeah.
I will say this is seems to be very much a chase and evade kind of thing. Possibly with a hint of spatial reasoning, because it becomes because it's turn-based. It sort of becomes a very kind of a.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see why somebody might make that argument, but I think it's fairly clearly a chase and evade.
So
I want to go back to this because this is actually one of the other points. Sorry, I'm flipping back to one of the other ones. Because our characters, because our enemies are so random, you can't plan, right? There's that the character doesn't have any agency. Sorry, the player doesn't have any agency here because the enemies are just so random.
That's why I think they should have a zone around them or something.
Yeah. And then they react in a certain way given their zone, their type.
Yeah, and there are things you can do to deactivate that behavior, maybe. And then you can strategize a bit. Yeah.
Yes. You throw them a lure, they go away.
Yeah. So what's interesting about the discussion about the dynamic is that so you're thinking chase and evade.
Have they said collection?
The things we've just described would bring in more elements of spatial reasoning, right?
Yep.
That's not what they think it is. They think it's a collection game.
So collecting is the objective.
It is true,
but
it's true you're collecting things, but it's the collecting a single thing is the objective. Oh, it's generated off to the side again.
So the argument I always make for this is the core dynamic, the best way to explain what that is what is the fun bit of the game. And in a game like, for example, Pokemon, which obviously has a very strong collection dynamic, because it's all about finding all of these new things and sort of accumulating a big collection of them, and that's the whole purpose of the game. Like, the fun bit in this game is avoiding these enemies. It's the evading, not the collecting, that's the fun bit.
Yeah. So I think it clearly isn't collection. And they said this is reinforced with a high score system, saving and challenging the player to beat the previous high score. So again, that's not actually reinforcing the collection, right?